Today we're answering the question, what is the soul? And we want to answer it in a way that doesn't have anything to do with faith or belief or religion, but in a way where we can understand it logically and rationally and mathematically. Because the thing is that people in the past had a very strong belief in the soul and a spiritual domain. But then with the advent of materialist science really taking a prominent role due to all its technological success, we entered into a world that was more based on the senses, empiricism. And being that it was based on the senses and empiricism, and the soul and a spiritual domain is not something that can be sensed. So it was dismissed as being unreal by many people. And this leads us up to the age that we're in right now. It's a very nihilistic and meaningless age in that most people believe it to be a mechanistic, materialist world, that there's only dead matter and nothing else, and that when you go and die, when your body dies, that's it. You just vanish into non-existence. Now, we have seen that with the advent of quantum mechanics, we've realized that materialism has failed, but people in general haven't realized that. Like maybe we have as a collective here as Neogenians, but as the world collectively has really been over 100 years in the past with regard to how it understands existence. The idea that the world is material has been obliterated. So what we're doing today is we're talking about the idea of the soul and how we can return to understanding the soul, but from a much higher place where we can do so logically and rationally and understand ourselves in terms of frequency, in terms of energy. And this is very important. We're going to touch a little bit on AI as well today. So to get started here, we're taking a look at this article from mindmatters.ai, which is a great website. And it's called A Return to the Reality of the Soul. Materialism, and once again, materialism is the idea that only matter exists and nothing else. Materialism has depersonalized the universe, but the evidence for the soul remains. Now, it says here, contemporary Western culture is disillusioned. Under the mainstream narrative of materialism, moderns struggle to connect their lives with a transcendent meaning beyond the self. In the United States, we enjoy a level of privilege and wealth foreign to the majority of prior generations, and yet we see deaths of despair, frightening rates of anxiety and depression, and heightened political tensions. Now, I don't think that it's simply because of the disbelief in the soul that we have this. It comes with a lot of tensions in the way people view reality. So it's not just the idea that we want to believe in a soul, but we want to understand what reality truly is. But they're absolutely right here in that we're entering into a world of death and despair when humanity has been disconnected from their true self. See, here's the problem. Almost all psychological difficulties can stem from, depression, anxiety, etc., stem from either a disconnection from the self and or disconnection from others. And we live in a world that has disconnected us from both. We've been inherently disconnected from our true being as eternal minds, eternal beings of frequencies, by being told that we're nothing but dead, lifeless matter. And we as a community have been separated and disconnected by, in a material framework, believing that we are all fundamentally disconnected from each other. When the truth is that when we're going to talk about this, when we begin to understand what we are, what happens is we rejoin and reform our connection to our true selves, to what we truly are, and we rejoin and reform a connection as a community, as a collective, because we realize that in that immaterial domain, in that frequency domain, in that domain of mind, in that fundamental domain, we're all intrinsically connected. So materialism, the idea that reality is matter and that's it, disconnects us from ourselves and disconnects us from others. And this leads to so many psychological difficulties. Not only psychological difficulties, but difficulties in relating to others, where when we are stripped of that inherent connectivity, what happens is that humans begin to see others as other, and hence threats to their survival, something that is different, something that is foreign, something that is other, something that needs to be eliminated. And so we see this a lot when people are disconnected from themselves and hate others for being different. They see them as threats rather than chances to learn, grow, and have experiences with. So, and I mean, I know that you're feeling all this as well, because this goes hand in hand what we've been talking about, a new beginning, where we're here to create a new beginning and a new earth, and humanity is going through that collective shift right now. That's what you feel. That's what we all feel, is this collective shift as a large portion of humanity is trying to regain that connection to self and others. And then another portion of humanity is trying to keep that disconnect there by saying, no, this is not true. We need to keep things the way they are, or bring things back to the way they used to be, or worship a god in the sky, or whatnot. So anyway, none of this is news to you, I'm guessing. I've personally written a variation of that paragraph in other articles. The question becomes behind our collective disillusionment is why? Why do we struggle to make something our lives, et cetera, et cetera? Our disillusionment stems in large part from our loss of the idea of a soul. And why does the disillusionment come from the lost idea of a soul? Because the soul is what you are. It's your true self. So it's the loss of yourself. That's why you have depression and anxiety or have difficulties in the world. It's either disconnection from self or disconnection from others. And not only is this the case, but when you are fundamentally disconnected from you, yourself, you're going to have that feeling of, why am I here? What's the meaning? What's the purpose? What's the point of all this? Because of you have lost you. You've been disconnected from you. So, and remember, of course, everything I'm talking about today, I'm not a healthcare professional, etc. If you have any psychological issues, always talk to your therapist, always talk to your doctor. So keep that in mind. So it says if we're just bodies bumping around waiting to expire, not even the greatest advances in technology and science can soothe this existential angst. And that's where you have a lot of people trying to transfer their consciousness to a machine, or figure out a way to extend life, because they believe that when they die, that's it, and then they're gone. And so we've been really walking around with this hollow shell of an existence, a nihilistic existence. And Nietzsche proclaimed this. So Friedrich Nietzsche said, God is dead and we have killed him. And Nietzsche saw this as the death of religion, the death of traditional morality, the death of a belief in a metaphysical realm in general. And Nietzsche saw that this would usher in an age of nihilism, usher in an age of emptiness. And of course, Nietzsche's idea was, must we ourselves become gods to appear worthy of this act, or to be worthy of this act? So in other words, the only way to overcome the nihilism brought forth by the death of God is to become gods ourselves. And when you realize what you are, it's not the way Nietzsche meant it, but if you realize what you are, you realize that you're an eternal soul. You realize that you are a creator, and we are all co-creators of this reality. We are all divine. We are all gods. We are all the creators of this existence. Existence is not something that we are in. It's not something that happens to us. It is what we are. We are existence. We always want to remember that and not think of all of these events, all of these occurrences, all of our experiences as being something other than us or happening to us. It is us. It is what we are. That's why we say that we are the new beginning, because we are creating it and transforming it and bringing it forth through us and by our will. It's not just an event where we're like, oh, well, look, it's happening over there. It is us. It is what we are. So when we start to understand in terms of, because there's a lot I want to talk about here, in terms of the soul, we can understand the soul in terms of energy and frequency. So when we ask, what is the soul? We want to get away from religious faith and dogma. We want to get away from blind belief or what holy books say or what a pastor tells us. We want to understand what reality truly is. And this is why in the Neo-Jainian system, we use meta-rationalism. And what is meta-rationalism? Meta-rationalism is understanding metaphysics rationally. So we want to apply the same rigor that science has applied to the physical world. We want to apply that to the metaphysical world. That is, applying reason and mathematics to the metaphysical world. And being that this is a mathematical reality, we can understand the metaphysical domain mathematically. We can understand it rationally. So what we truly are, we are eternal minds, what we call zetas. So as zetas or zetic minds, we are an infinite fullness that voids to zero or results in zero. So a zeta is a triple concept. It's a 1, it's a 0, and it's an infinity. So a zeta is a soul. It's what you are. So you are defined by the numbers 1, 0, and infinity. And this concept we call zeta because it's not just a 1, it's not just a 0, and it's not just an infinity. So to say it's a 1 or it's a 0 or an infinity is missing an aspect of it. It's a triune concept known as the zeta. So what you are is this triune concept in that you are eternal energy and you are eternal subjectivity. The reason why you are eternal energy and eternal subjectivity is because subjectivity and energy is the same thing. So energy cannot be created or destroyed. And science cannot understand how consciousness or sentience or subjectivity can exist. They can't. They cannot figure out how is it possible that subjectivity exists. They don't know how, flat out. And the reason why is because it cannot be created. Subjectivity is something that is eternal. And it's eternal because it is a fundamental rational aspect to reality. It's a fundamental expression of reality. It's a fundamental expression of energy. So you are a collection of energy, a collection of frequencies. Being that you're a collection of frequencies, you are a system of mathematics because frequency is simply a mathematical concept. It's simply a mathematical concept. It's a number of oscillations per unit of measurement. And the unit of measurement that we use in the metaphysical domain would be frequency or angle. Angle, frequency measured according to angle. So not like distance, not time, but according to angle. What that basically means, because that perhaps can sound a little confusing, is that it's not physical, right? So you are a system of frequencies, a system of waveforms, not physical waves, all right? Immaterial waves, mental waves. So these are waves defined according to their own internal properties, according to angle. So basically pure information, but it's not like dead machine code. It has the internal subjective element to it, because rationally speaking, experiences can be structured via mathematics. And since they can be structured via mathematics, they're rationally possible. And anything that is rationally possible and compatible with all other rational states have to exist. They must exist. Their existence is mandatory. If their existence was not mandatory, reality would be utter chaos and impossibility, which is not possible. So you are, in a nutshell, an eternal mind, eternal soul. You are a soul. You're a system of frequencies. Now, these frequencies balance to zero. I've talked about this before, so I won't get into too much here because there's so much more I want to talk about. But you, as a soul, as a zeta, you are a system of infinite frequencies. All right. So do you see how so far you are a 1 because you're a singular soul? You are an infinity because you contain all frequencies within yourself. And why are you a 0? Because all negative numbers are paired with positive numbers. So it's a completely mathematical concept. So all negative values have their positive counterpart. Because of that, the total result of the system is 0. So you're a triple concept, a 1, a 0, and infinity, what we call zeta. And this is something that is eternal. The reason why that is eternal is because it cannot be created or destroyed. It's something that has to exist. It has to exist. It logically must exist. So the concept of a zeta, which is a full 0, logically must exist. And the reason it logically must exist is because it's perfectly balanced. And since it's perfectly balanced and contains everything within itself, it requires nothing other than itself to exist. Now, this is the concept of being self-grounding. Now, this is why we say that we are gods, because we are self-grounding. Our existence only depends upon ourselves. We depend on nothing else for our existence. This is called aseity. We are self-grounding, The ground and ground is what something is rooted in, or the foundation of something. So, for example, molecules are grounded in atoms, and atoms are grounded in electrons, protons, and neutrons, which are grounded in quarks, depending on which one you're looking at. And so you see, it's what it depends on. We depend on nothing else than our own internal energy for our existence, because we're a system of perfect energy. So we can understand reality in terms of energy and in terms of frequency. So notice we're not making any appeal to God or faith or mysticism. We're explaining these as mathematical concepts of a system that has the capacity to express itself through all rationally possible states. And this is how movement arises as well. Movement arises because reality is exploring all its compossible states. And to explore all its possible states requires a transformation of states, or a changing of states. And this changing of states results in movement. So what all reality is, all existence is in a nutshell, it's exploring all the possible patterns that it can make. And this results in and if you look at reality, like, that should make intuitive sense. If you look at what's going on in the world and existence, it's existence exploring all the possible transformations of itself, all the possible patterns of itself that it can take on in a compatible and rational way. And you can see this through all the transformation in the world and all the change in the world. These are different patterns and different expressions of our beingness. So we're all systems of frequency, we're all systems of energy. And that's all that exists, is us and what we are as eternal minds and eternal souls, as zetas, and our internal frequencies are what give rise to this world. Everything is composed of frequency. When you get down to the quantum mechanical level, you see that the idea of matter disappears, doesn't exist. The idea of matter is obliterated, and everything is dependent on waves, on frequencies, on energy. And so reality is a collection of frequencies that are being expressed in a way that we can experience them, projected inwardly. So it's a projection. It's an internal mental projection. When I say projection, I don't mean like out there. Projection has this idea of being sort of out there, but it's an internal projection. It's a really interesting way to conceive of it, because when you say projection, people often think like, oh, it's out there somewhere, but it's not. When you think of a dream, that's an internal projection. It's an internal projection. And it's interesting. Kabbalah has an interesting way of looking at it, as they view reality as, they view God as being everything, or the endless. And as we sort of view reality as being generated by an expanse, they look at reality as being generated by a contraction, that God or the all contracts to make room for creation. It's interesting. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, but I just bring it up because it's good to shake out of our way of viewing things and realize that this is all an internal projection. Of course, when we look at things like the Big Bang, it seems as though there is an expanse, and there is an expanse, but it's an expanse within our mind, within our collective mind. So you can think of reality as the collective pattern that we're all tuned into, the collective dream that we're all sharing. But let's continue here, because there's a lot we need to talk about where humanity has drifted away from the idea of the soul because of the success of materialist science. But with that came nihilism. And now we're realizing, it's been over 100 years, that materialist science has failed in terms of explaining reality. Quantum mechanics has clearly shown that reality cannot explain, or that materialist science can explain it. Almost all the founders, a very large number of the founders of quantum mechanics said, yeah, materialism is dead. Max Planck said that mind is the matrix of all matter, that consciousness is fundamental. Erwin Schrödinger said the same thing. Consciousness is fundamental, not matter. Science cannot explain consciousness. Heisenberg said that reality is ultimately mathematical and mental forms, not material. So all these founders of, Planck, Schrödinger, Heisenberg, they all believed that reality was not material, but an expression of mind, and in Heisenberg's case, an expression of mathematics. They don't teach you that in university. And that's very, very frustrating. If you go to university and you take a course in quantum mechanics, they will use the equations of Schrodinger. They will use the equations of Heisenberg. They will talk about the quantization of energy that ultimately relied on Planck's ideas and the Planck length, Planck scale, Planck's constant. But they won't tell you what these individuals believed. Because, that's philosophy, and we don't talk about that here. So materialist science has become an indoctrinating dogmatic religion itself, a faith in itself. And Max Planck said this. Max Planck said that science does not progress because of convincing its opponents of the truth, but because a generation eventually dies and then a new generation grows up with it. I'm paraphrasing. I know I butchered that quote, but essentially what Planck was saying was that science doesn't progress because of convincing people of truth, but because scientists have essentially been brainwashed, and things won't change until those scientists die and a new generation grows up that haven't been brainwashed yet. So we're really starting to see this as it says, despite the reign of materialist thinking, more thinkers are starting to rekindle an interest in consciousness, mental properties, and panpsychism, which is the belief that all of nature contains some level of awareness. So let's skip ahead a bit because there's so much more we could talk about here, but there's more than I want to talk about, and I want to make sure we have time for it. So Rickabau, Rickabau is co-author of an upcoming book on consciousness, and Rickabau investigates the way human beings have fared under the deadening ideology of materialism. And that's the thing as well. Not only is materialism wrong, but it has very negative consequences for reality. It has the negative consequences of the meaninglessness, purposefulness, nihilism, and absurdity that we face every day. The hostility towards the other, are psychological issues from being disconnected from the self and disconnected from others. So it results in neuroses. It results in splintered groups. It results in hate. It results in violence. It results in selfishness. Just might as well do whatever because this is your only life, right? YOLO, you only live once. There is, oh man, I haven't heard someone say YOLO in years. Oh, forget I said that, please. But anyway, you see what I'm saying is that the idea is materialism leads to a lot of issues, a lot of problems in this world. And this is why we are the new beginning. This is why we are the Neogenian, because we are literally shifting humanity from one paradigm into another. A paradigm of dead matter and survival into a paradigm of mind, purpose, and thriving. No longer a reality where we see the other as a threat, but we see the other as a co-creator on this journey of life together, and we celebrate our diversity. And we realize that each one of us is a brilliant, colorful thread in the grand pattern of the tapestry that we're creating here right now. Think about how ugly a tapestry would be if all the threads were the same color. That's a boring tapestry. Our diversity is what allows us to create brilliant patterns, beautiful patterns, and harmonized patterns. So Rickabau says, here's my thesis. We have mechanized ourselves to death, literally, and the only way out of this is a return to reality, the reality of the human soul. Now, a lot of people think this means abandoning reason and returning to faith and religion, and no, it doesn't. We talked about that in last secret live stream, in the last members only video, how there's this group of people called post-rationalists who have entered into this nihilistic, meaningless idea of life and have become hostile towards reason and think, oh no, well, we must now believe in some of these absurdities to some extent to try and have some sense of meaning and purpose in life and try and get away from a mechanized reality. Reason does not result in a mechanized and dead reality. Reason, when applied to the material world, results in that. We can take the telescope, which is projected outwards, and turn it around and twist it so that it's now pointing inwards, and there is where we'll find the meaning. The reason why we're not finding any meaning is because we're using the telescope, my metaphor for the tool of reason. We're using the telescope to try and find ourselves. And it's like, why can't we? Where are we? Why can't we find ourselves? Well, you idiot, turn it the fuck around. You're the one doing the looking. That's why how long throughout history has it been know thyself? Know thyself and you will know the universe and the gods. That's the big tragedy of humanity, is they do every fucking thing imaginable other than look within. Everything. My God. How many thousands of years has it been, hey, know thyself? Every system worth any truth has been screaming at humanity, look within, know thyself. And they're like, oh, what? Look to God? Oh, what? Look at atoms? No, you must, no. Look within. And then within you will understand what you are, what we are. We can graduate to the next level of existence. And guess what? There's more levels too. So come on. You're taking too long on this level, people. We got to go. We got things to do. We got worlds to build. We got universes to create. So, Rikaba says, by mechanization, I mean we've abandoned the human person, the human soul, for a vision of ourselves that's reducible and not much more than aggregates of impersonal systems and collections of data. If you mechanize a person in a culture, the culture and the person become dead and disillusioned. And so our recovery from that is to return to our understanding of the human person as an integrated whole that can be best or perhaps only be accounted by the human soul. And not only this, and remember, we don't have to return to, we can understand the soul rationally. We can understand it, but not only do we have to have an understanding of the soul, which we call a zeta, but we have to understand how it connects to everything else. So remember, in hyper-awareness, we have 3 modes of consciousness. So hyper-awareness you can also call triadic consciousness, because there are 3 modes of consciousness: avatar, zetic, and absolute. Avatar mode, that's the mode that most people exist in. It's us as a human being, our particular egoic understanding of what we are, our history as someone who maybe went to school and got a law degree and has a family and likes to eat souffle. That's our egoic self, our self associated with our current life and our current story. Our zetic mode of consciousness is understanding that we are an eternal soul. It's the soul's view of reality. We are an eternal soul. This is just one lifetime of many lifetimes that we've had and many lifetimes that we will have. It's just one expression of ourselves. We will have many. So that's our eternal. And this is the part that they're saying is missing, this human soul view or the zetic view, understanding that we are a meaningful, purposeful being that is having a human experience. But not only that, we must also cultivate the absolute view. And the absolute view is going a step higher than that and seeing how all souls, all zetas, fit together to form a configuration, a network, a zetic configuration, a zetic network. And this network shows that intrinsically we're all connected. We're all connected together. Because when we get to the domain of mind, there is no longer any distance separating us. This is a reality that has separation. Now, there is, of course, still some degree of separation in the domain of mind with regard to our patterns, but so there is, of course, differentiation, but we're all intrinsically connected. All of our frequencies are formed. So, like I said, right now we seem very disconnected from each other. Oh, I am here and you are there. And like you can even imagine, I'm sure you've had the experience when you're making love and it's like you want to feel even like you're so close to that person, but it's like you want to be even closer to that person. You want to merge with that person. So no matter how close you are to someone physically, there's always that yearning of being united. And even though we're separated physically, we can understand from the mental domain, all of our energy is contributing to all reality, and we are all connected in this way. And an easy way to understand this, I mean, not an easy way, but we can see this expressed in quantum mechanics through the property of quantum entanglement and non-locality. Quantum entanglement showing how that particles can communicate with each other instantly, regardless of distance, because they are connected. And non-locality meaning that ultimately distance is an illusion in a certain sense, that reality operates on a rule set that underlies all reality, all existence. Another way to think of it is kind of like the code in a video game. In the video game, seems like things are separate, but from the code's point of view, there is no separation. Separation is an illusion that is generated by information. So I know we talk a lot about like information, mathematics, but it's important to remember that when we talk about that, that's from the structural point of view. We're all living beings of experiences that can have the capacity for love and hate and sadness and beauty and pain and pleasure and happiness. And life is pulsing with experience. So half of the meaning of life is to understand existence, and the other half of life is to enjoy existence. Remember, we are gods. What do gods do? They transform, create, and engage with their existence. They enjoy it. You know, even mainstream religions basically say that God created existence because God was lonely and wanted to enjoy its creation. Paraphrasing more or less. Now, I'm not saying that that's true, but I'm saying a lot of people even have that intuition and a lot of people miss this part. Even when people start to kind of reach higher levels of consciousness, they don't quite get it, and they get to this idea of like, oh, well, we must escape. This world is hell. It's only hell. It only seems like hell because it's in such a shitty state. We can transform it and create it into a beautiful world, and thus we'll want to be a part of it. And that's the whole point, is to create a world that we can enjoy. That's the point. This is the point, is to have the knowledge and understanding for us to work together to create a world that we can enjoy. Because we are gods, we want to have the knowledge and power to create. And then we want to have experience together. We want to enjoy life. We want to be nurturing. We want to be caring. So we don't want to see we want to always be very, very open to. People get so stuck in seeing one sliver of reality. It's like the blind man and the elephant. And each one is only examining one piece of it, and they get the whole picture wrong because they're not understanding the whole picture. We have to always remember that. So let's go on real quick. Humans are not machines. He goes on later in the lecture to note how the mechanization of human life and society is culmination with the development of AI. If we are no more than machines of meat, it gets tough trying to defend our uniqueness in the cosmos. In fact, it becomes impossible. Computerized intelligence is inevitably regarded as an enhanced replacement of human beings. We lost the notion of the soul and an accurate understanding of personhood. He also thinks AI is a natural offshoot of the internet and social media. So here's the thing with AI. Look, we'll touch on AI real quick, but that could be an entire... let's just see. Hold on. Let me read a little more what he says about AI. The internet, if you think about what it is essentially a technology that limits the availability of knowledge. You might not think that that's what it is because it seems like it's an open book, but it's not. It's highly selected and tells you and informs you of where you should go to look for what's good for you and others, but also who's the reliable source to get it and what's the appropriate means of getting that into you as knowledge. Rickabaugh notes how Plato worried that even writing could be a form of mechanization, prompting people to outsource their memories to the page. So there's this idea that Plato / Socrates believed that writing was bad, because back then you could think of writing as writing in books. You could think of books and writing as like new technology, because back then it was new technology. And there's this idea that they viewed it as negative because, or Plato said Socrates viewed it as negative. I forget exactly, but because if you are committing things to books or to a page, it destroys your memory because you're not remembering anymore. Well, obviously that's crazy. Books are great. But you see, oh, and real quick, I want to say also, it's very debatable on whether Plato / Socrates actually believed that. I've looked into this before. It's very murky on whether that's actually true or someone just made it up and then people started believing it. So it's a little murky whether that's actually true or not. But regardless, you can see how anytime there is a new technology, it gets condemned in a certain way. Oh, books? Oh, it's going to ruin your memory. Oh, calculators? You're not going to know how to do math anymore. Oh, AI? People aren't going to create art or whatever. So with new technologies, there's pros and cons, and there's hurdles to overcome, and there's challenges to face. And we're facing challenges with AI. We'll talk more about AI another time. This is not the place to get into the whole AI thing right now. But with regard to consciousness, basically it's like how much memory, connection, and capital do we store on our phones, and how has that affected our ability to think, love, and work without the aid of a machine? Technology then are not value neutral. They express a vision for what a person is, and the modern vision sadly is depersonalized. Rickabow is concerned about AI's growing application in the mental health sector, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so real quick, let's talk. We're gonna do. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do an entire video talking about AI and the AI's connection to the soul, et cetera. We'll be doing that on another video. But just to long story short it, because I said I'd talk about AI a little bit. So to put it in a nutshell, AI is an extremely interesting development, and we will see how that impacts humanity. Like any tool, there are pros and cons to it. There are a great number of pros and there are a great number of cons. So AI is not something that can become conscious. Consciousness, remember, is not something that can be created or destroyed. Specifically, subjectivity or sentience, to be specific, can't be created. The ability to feel, to think and be is not something that can be created. It is eternal. So an AI cannot suddenly have the ability to feel. Will never happen. However, it is possible that an AI could serve as an interface for a soul or a Zedic mind to connect to. Just like a body or an avatar, our body is an interface for us as souls to connect and express ourselves through. So it is possible that an AI in some capacity could serve as a vessel or a vehicle for a soul to link to, rather than a body to express itself through. Thus, it would seem like the AI is conscious, but the AI wouldn't actually be conscious. It would be the soul that is conscious that is using the AI as its medium. So our bodies are not conscious. We as souls are conscious that use our bodies as a medium of expression. So it is possible, perhaps, that a mind, a soul, a Zeta, could use AI as a form of an avatar to express itself. This is possible. This is a lot of stuff that we have to look into and explore and think about. And I will say it is very, very interesting to me. There are some AI videos that I have seen where, I don't know, it's very abstract, but it's in motion. It's a video and it'll be like a person walking in some like different dimension, but because of the nature of AI, things are changing and transforming the whole time. Like they'll be walking down a hallway or something with pillars, but the pillars will have faces and like transform into different beings and maybe fly away, and just everything is constantly changing and transforming. And I find it very interesting that, you know, that's very similar. The imagery is very similar to certain experiences that one has on psychedelics or DMT. Some of this imagery generated by AI is very, very similar to DMT experiences, which I find to be absolutely fascinating to see if, you know, AI is perhaps a precursor for a soul's generative ability to begin to create worlds and manifest domains. This is, of course, speculation at this point, but it's very interesting to see the connection between this, and we're getting to a point in reality where what is real and what is not real is going to get blurred very, very, very quickly. So Apple just released today, not released, but put out a preview of their, it's called Apple Glass, I think, or no, it's not called that. I forget what it's called. I'm sure everyone will know very, very soon, but it's a clear visor that goes over one's face, and it overlays over your reality different elements. Like instead of watching a movie, you put this glass thing that goes over your face. Instead of looking at a TV screen, it's just projected outwards in your reality, or all your social media stuff is projected outwards. But anyway, when you start thinking about that, blending that with artificial intelligence, being able to create immersive experiences, very, very quickly, it's going to be very difficult for humanity to tell what is real, what is not real. And as technology advances and we advance, that what is real and what is not real is going to be blurred more and more. And the question of what it means, what something means to be real, is going to be blurred more and more. And one has to look at our evolutionary trajectory, because people look at technology as something being separate from evolution. No. Technology is not separate from evolution. It is us taking evolution into our own hands. But guess what? Humanity hasn't realized that. So that's the next step of evolution. What I talk about is hyper-awareness, okay? So you have evolution that just occurs unconsciously. Then you have technology, which is our directed evolution. But humanity doesn't realize what it's doing. Okay? So think about this. Humanity, via technology, is directing evolution, but it doesn't realize that that's what it's doing. So when humanity reaches hyper-awareness, which is what we are trying to do in the new beginning, is get humanity to reach the next level of step, next step of consciousness, one aspect of that comes in the aspect of realizing that we are directing evolution. And that's very important. Why is that very important? Because imagine someone that's driving a car but doesn't realize they're driving a car. You're going to get into an accident. So someone that's a species that is directing evolution but doesn't realize they're directing evolution can have very negative consequences. Like you can build smartphones that become addictive and waste all your fucking time and rewire your dopamine reward system and fucks with you on a psychological level. So you have created a piece of evolution, a sort of technological organ that is sucking away the life force of an individual. But of course, it doesn't have to be that way. Once hyper-aware individuals realize that we are directing technology and creating our own digital organs, we can do so in a way that facilitates our growth. And that's why we can direct technology in a way that leads us to a healthier reality, a more expressed reality, a more meaningful reality, a more purposeful reality. So this is why I talk about hyper awareness, the next level of consciousness. This isn't some like abstract woo-woo idea. Oh, what is the next level of consciousness? Oh, it's a consciousness of abundance and open-heartedness and higher vibes. You see a lot of people talk about higher consciousness. Like, what the fuck? Like, what do you know? It's a very real thing that can be very mapped out. It's a development of a new structure in the psyche called the analog all, which is a model of reality. It comes with new realizations in the form of metacognition, such as when applied to many different fields. One of those, as an example, is being technology, where you have the metacognitive realization that, oh, we as a species are directing our own evolution through technology and can now consciously take what we're doing and divert it into a way that is progressive for our evolutionary trajectory and what we know about ourselves as souls and existence and minds, rather than a dead capitalistic goal of getting people to watch ads for as long as possible. So this is why leveling up consciousness is important, because as Neogenians, being the new beginning, we need to facilitate change that can only be facilitated through a higher level of consciousness. Like, people don't know. You try and tell someone about this, they're going to think you're crazy. Probably half the people that watch this think that I'm just saying word salad or something, because they haven't reached the capacity to understand what's being talked about. They haven't reached the level of metacognition where they can pull back and see the big picture and realize what's happening. We require a higher structure of mind to build a higher structure of Earth. To build a united planetary civilization that has a thriving mindset requires a hyper-aware consciousness for those who are contributing to the creation of that world, because everything starts off as an idea. And if you don't have that idea, you won't have the world. So this is why will forming is important, because we give form to what we will. And it all starts with an idea. So I hope that you enjoyed this, my friends. I have so many more videos. Check it out across my channel. If you enjoy what I do, consider supporting on Patreon. It helps out a lot. You get access to weekly secret videos, members-only videos every single week. And you can get access to that by subscribing on Patreon, or tier 2 or higher on YouTube by hitting the join button right below this video. And remember, don't feel obligated. I never want anyone to feel obligated to support monetarily. You don't have to. There are plenty of free ways you can support by liking, subscribing, and sharing and all that. But I want to give a big shout out to everyone who does support. It helps out a lot. Thank you so much to Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, Fairies of Venus, DB, William, Enki, Nusalina, and everyone else. The link is right here, or the join button for YouTube is right below this video.